All right, we'll give it another minute before we get started. This is the home desk setup. So we're going to talk about how we want to set up our home desk if you've been working at home. So we kind of know now we're going to be in this situation for a little bit longer maybe than we first anticipated. So a lot of people will be working at home at a desk with their laptops or computers if you're lucky enough to have a monitor, any of that kind of stuff in terms of setting up our workstation here. So a few things we want to kind of address at the beginning is we know not everybody has a great chair. Some people have good home office chairs, some people don't. We're going to give you some things to help try to maneuver around that to give you a better situation for your setup. So the first thing we're going to look at now is the chair itself. So you'll see here I've got a chair that has a back to it. Some people will have smaller chairs, some people have chairs that come up to their shoulders, even their heads. And the biggest thing we want to do with the chair is we want to get our backside all the way back and rest our back against that chair, okay? So if you're sitting for a long period of time, we want to be able to rest our back into that chair. Now, a lot of people will tend to sit up in the front of their chair, great posture, up here just like this, and typing, but that's going to actually make us really tired, and it's going to end up giving us some low back soreness trying to stay up there. As we get tired, the next thing we start to do is we start to fall down this way. As we fall down this way, our head comes forward, and now we're working here for hours instead of staying up here. So the easiest way to do this is to get your backside all the way back in the chair, lean back against it, and that's the position we want to be in for our low back. So that's one thing you can try to do for a quick fix for if you're getting low back soreness when you're at home at your desk. The other thing is if you're already doing that, we'll spin you this way. I'm in my slippers because nobody's in shoes when they're at home working. So we'll go barefoot. The other thing is as I scoot all the way back, my feet are not firmly planted on the ground, okay? Let me back up a little bit. I'm not sure if you can see that. So my feet are not firmly planted solid into the ground. If I wanted them solid into the ground, I'd have to scoot forward a little bit to get them solid into the ground. So that's one way that this chair isn't really ideal for me. So what I can do are a couple of different ways that I can help myself with that. Two things. If I want to use the back side of the chair, but my feet are not flat, I can get a book, something that fills that space that I can put on the floor, and now my feet can be firmly placed on the floor. Or, put this back, I can get a pillow, and I can take the pillow, put it in the back side of that chair, and that's going to increase where that back support is. So as you can see there, now I've got a couple more inches of back support. Now my feet are firmly placed on the floor. And I actually like this better than this book. The book was a little bit too thick for my feet. So that will kind of bring us to our next point in terms of the chair. When we sit, in order to reduce some of the pressure on the back. So having your feet solid on the floor, that reduces some of the pressure on the back. Being able to rest back reduces some of the pressure on the back. Okay? So when your feet are solid on the floor, that takes a little bit of the weight. And then having your knees slightly below your hips. So if I turn sideways, you see me here. If I scoot back, my feet are flat. You can see that my knee is just slightly below my hip. That's going to take a little bit of pressure off the low back. If I get this book back, which is a little too thick for me, and I put my feet in, now you'll see my knees are starting to come up, even with my hips, or even if you have something, if you're taller, you can get your knees up above your hips. That is going to make your hip flexors short. That's going to get the hips tight. That's going to get your low back to round. And now we're talking about, if I get rid of this pillow here, and my knees are up high, now we're talking about pushing you into this position, which is going to make your back sore, okay? So big tips for the chair are to try and scoot all the way back. Our ideal would be to scoot all the way back if you have a back support. We want the hips slightly below the knees. We want the knees slightly below the hips, right? And we want to be our feet firmly planted on the ground, on a step stool, on a book, anything that will give you a solid footing into the ground. So if you're like me, you're a little bit shorter, we're either going to need to put that pillow in the back or give you something that gives you a firm place for your feet, but the knees are staying just below the hips, okay? So then from there, what do we want to look at? We want to look at our positioning of our computer, our laptop, and our head and neck, okay? So as we roll up into our workstation, I have my computer here, all right? We want to do as best we can. We're resting back in that chair. Lock it in. We're resting back in that chair. We want to do as best we can just to use our eyes to look down. If we tilt our head to look down, then we start shooting ourselves forward, slowly moving forward, slowly moving forward. So we want you to get in this position, ears stacked over your shoulders, and use your eyes to look down, okay? Now, this is if you have a laptop, okay? If you have a monitor or you have a wireless keyboard or anything like that, what we want to do is we want to bring the top edge of that monitor or the top edge of that screen up to eye level, okay? So not the top of the screen, but the top of the monitor up to eye level. So if you have a keyboard, if you have a wireless keyboard for your laptop, you can use books, you can use whatever you need to get your laptop up higher. I wouldn't recommend using that because it's not very sturdy. But now we're getting closer to eye level. So now I don't have to even pull my eyes down or put myself in a position where I'm going to start dropping my head. That's at about eye level and we can type on our keyboard here. Or if you're using the laptop, you can close it slightly. You have your monitor up here and you can use your screen and your mouse this way, okay? So that position, just being able to keep the shoulders stacked, or the ears stacked over the shoulders, that head stacked, keeping your low back and your shoulders back, is going to help take some of that tension that we get in the neck when we're reaching our head out in front and we're getting all this tension and tightness through our upper back, our shoulders, and the base of our neck, okay? All right, so we've gone through kind of low back, where we want in our chair. We've gone through what we want for our neck and our head position a little bit. Now the next thing is going to be your arms and your hands, okay? So where we want to go, if you for a second here, if we come to the front of your chair and you bend your elbows up to 90 degrees, palms down, this is where we want to live. Everything at this 90-degree level that you're working with should be within this radius. Your keyboard, your mouse, your coffee, your pen and paper, all should be within here. Now, if it's something that you're not using as frequently, like if you're just jotting a note down here and there, that's fine. You can reach, jot a note down, and come back. But if it's something you're using a lot, keyboard, mouse, anything like that, go ahead, keep that within that 90-degree elbow bend and inside that radius, okay? So as I come up here, you'll see that my elbows will have to be higher because the desk is higher. So what I would need to do is I would need to elevate this chair. It's my wife's chair. There you go. I would need to elevate this chair to get in, get my 90 degrees open and then close, okay? So now that I'm there, I need to scoot back into my chair, and now you can see my feet really swing freely. So either I would need to put the pillow behind me, or I would need to build up my feet to get my feet solid on the ground. But this is now where I would want to live. Now on a laptop, you have your trackpad, and then you have your keypad. But if I had a mouse and I'm left-handed, it would be right here, right-handed here, pen, paper, right here, okay? Now, as you are going, you might run into some issues where what happens if the arm doesn't fit underneath the desk. That is a situation where you might have to sit further up in front of the chair. So now we need to build the back of that chair back up to you with pillows, something soft in there. I would recommend a pillow versus a lumbar support, only because a lumbar support doesn't support you all the way up. So if I have a higher back chair and I just have a lumbar support in there, it's going to cause me to arch back and still bring my shoulders back to the chair. So if I had something that was even all the way up, that's going to be a little bit better for me. Okay? So now with our arms, we want them at 90 degrees. We want everything inside that radius here. And then we want our wrists slightly extended. So a slight extension of the wrist, let me go a little closer here for you, is actually our open pack position. So that extension of the wrist, slight extension of the wrist would be just elevating it up like that. So a lot of times if you have a keyboard, or even if you have one of those big foam or gel pads underneath the keyboard, it's gonna force you into more of an extension, and it's gonna cause tightening and pain potentially in your elbow, potentially at your wrist. So instead of being up here, we wanna be a little more here, elbows at 90 degrees, and this is where we wanna work, right? So from an extension standpoint, let's get me up a little higher in my 90 degrees. I want to be right about here. I don't want to be up this way. So how does that happen? If we're too low, we sit back and we're up here on our keyboard. Okay? This is what I do sometimes, and I catch myself. So if you scoot back and slide back, now we're rounding through our low back. We're putting pressure on our sit bones. This is when we get up and we feel really stiff. So if we can scoot back and get supported in there, that's going to be your best position. Okay? So let's go back through the main points that we want for your home desk setup. We want your backside all the way back in your chair supported and your feet firmly flat on the ground. If you can't do one without the other, then we're either going to put a pillow in behind you, or we're going to build the floor up to your feet to get them nice and firm on ground. Then when you're doing that, we want to make sure your knees are slightly below your hips. That's going to take a lot of pressure off the back, along with having your feet firmly on the ground. Then we want to try and stack your ears up over your shoulders, and this is where we want to live. Eyes will come down to the screen if you need to, or you can build your screen up to eye level, either one. If you have, like I said, if you have a keyboard, build it up. If you have a monitor, same thing. And then we want hands, arms, 90 degrees, everything within this radius, and then wrists just slightly extended as you go, okay? A big question that we'll get is the ball, sitting on the ball. So if you sit on a ball for a long period of time, you have no back support. And yes, people want to use it to work on their core, work on their back muscles, and that's great for a short period of time, but it's unrealistic for me to ask you to sit on a ball for 6 hours and try and maintain a good posture. A lot of us have a hard enough time doing it for a short period of time, let alone 6, 8, 10 hours, however long you're working. So it's a good way to put it in there for a few minutes every hour, so that you get a little bit of movement. But I wouldn't recommend just sitting on it for hours on end. I'd rather you be supported and have some support here to take some of the pressure off the joints in the back and the neck and the wrists, than be on a ball for hours at a time. Okay? So that's about it for our tips. Thanks for joining us. For those of you that are in, let me check. Let's see. If you have any questions, feel free to put some comments up. And if you didn't catch us live, feel free to put questions in the comments in the bottom. We'll get back to them and we can answer them, especially if you have any questions about your own setup. If something is a little off, or you need help with any of the setup that you have at home, feel free to shoot us a question. All right? We'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.